tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal, it's hit him on the pad, he's out! Lions gone, New South Wales are 9 down! Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car! Oh, I think it's hit a car! What a way to bring up your 50!
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I hope you're having a great Saturday night. I am having an absolute corker. What an afternoon for Australian cricket fans. Was that just the most exhilarating thing, seeing both teams push for victory at the same time? Just incredible. The men's team were going wicket for wicket with the women's team at the MCG. You had the Australian women's team circling a dead pommy team that were just ready for the kill, really. And then in Gaul, Australia approached an historic victory against Sri Lanka, and they both got the job done, and they both got the job done within moments of each other. King takes the last English wicket to complete their tour of hell and give Australia a first ever whitewash since the multi-format Ashes series. And then moments later, Matt Kuhneman takes the last wicket to finish Sri Lanka off. A record defeat for them, their biggest ever defeat in Test cricket, an innings and 242 runs. Australia's biggest ever victory in Asia. As I said, an innings and 242 runs. It was just incredible stuff. Australia beat England by an innings and 122 runs at the MCG. So this afternoon, if you're an Aussie cricket fan, it is heaven. And I'm just trying to think, I can't imagine there's ever been a situation before where both the men's and women's test teams have been playing at the same time and approaching victory in that manner. So, you know, what a privilege it was. One of the great days in Australian sport, I would say Australian history, full stop, just put it in the record books for the kids. Kids should be learning about this day in decades to come because it was incredible. Tests finishing within moments of each other. Just staying at the MCG for a sec, because those bloody Poms were hopeless. They have come to Australia and not got a point, so they've been embarrassed. They are just adding to the long line of English teams that have come here and been humiliated. Today's play, I mean, it was so good for Alana King. If you haven't seen it, go and look at that ball to get Dunkley. It's they keep saying it's the Gatting ball, and it is. It drifted into Dunkley's leg stump to the blind spot and then ripped and turned and hit her off stump. So King finished with 5 for 53. So her name will go up on the honours board for that 5-wicket haul. And so will Beth Mooney's, who completed her century. She was 98 not out overnight. She'd never made a test century, so I don't know how much sleep she had, but she was able to complete the century. Australia were rolled pretty quickly today, but it didn't matter. They have bowled England out under lights and won in just 3 days. And incredible stuff, and congratulations to them. A clean sweep of this Ashes series is jaw-droppingly good from the Australian women's team. The last series in England was drawn 8-all, but as per usual, the English come here and they don't compete. They just don't do it in men's or women's teams. They're just hopeless when they get here, and this was no different. And then to Gaul, well, a 4-day win for Australia. They took 15 wickets today. I think when we were doing the show last night, I was speculating whether Australia would have enough time to bowl Sri Lanka out. Done it with a day to spare. Unbelievable. A record loss for Sri Lanka, their biggest ever. As I said, Australia's biggest win in Asia, and it was a terrific effort to take 15 wickets in one day. Dinesh Chandimal has the unhappy statistical quirk now of being dismissed twice in the one session. He was dismissed both times in the morning session. So poor Chandimal. That's just a terrible, a terrible stat to have. So Sri Lanka, they started the day 5 down, and they were plodding along okay, but then Kusal Mendes was out to a fantastic bit of captaincy from Steve Smith. He had the field in a sort of odd spot behind square on the onside, and Kusal Mendes obliged by sweeping one off Kuhneman and getting caught, and that made the score 6 for 156. And then it was a bit of a collapse. They lost Chandimal in the next over. He was gone for 72 LBW to line, trying to reverse sweep. Then Jay Surya was out the over after that. Then Paris was out. Then Van der Sar was out. And they lost a ridiculous 5 for 9 inside 5 overs. So they trailed Australia by a massive 489 runs. Just calypso collapso stuff from Sri Lanka this morning. Kuhneman finished with figures of 5 for 63, his second 5-wicket haul in Test cricket, capping off a remarkable, heroic return to the Test side after being having his thumb severed in a Big Bash game, being reattached, and he's still playing on. That's Aussie guts there for you. Nathan Lyon took 3 for 57. Mitchell Starc 2 for 13. Good couple of good wickets for Starc, considering the conditions don't favour him. He got Karunaratne early and Kamindu Mendes yesterday. So he made a contribution. He continues his stellar record in Sri Lanka. So, of course, Australia enforced the follow-on, and the second innings did not start well for Sri Lanka. Fernando was out LBW to Starc in the third over, plumb in front. Just playing pretty much across a straight one. And then next over, Karunaratne left a Todd Murphy delivery and was bowled. So Murphy hadn't got a wicket in the first innings, so it must have settled his nerves a lot to get a wicket in his second over of the second innings. He was coming around the wicket to Karunaratne, bowled a nice straight arm ball, and Karunaratne was bowled for a duck. It looks like I think he's due to play his 100th Test match in the next Test match. So then we'll see if he retires after that. But that was an embarrassing dismissal. So he goes, and at that stage, Sri Lanka had lost 7 wickets in the hour across 2 innings. So just a forgettable morning for Sri Lanka. Then just before lunch, Chandimal was out, caught bat and pad. It was given not out, but they reviewed it and it was given out. A little bit of bat on that. So Chandimal, as I said, had the ignominy of being dismissed twice in the session. Then there were some disappointing dismissals as Australia started to go through the middle order. Kamindu Mendes hold out in the outfield off Kuhneman, disappointing shot. Dhananjaya De Silva played a silly shot trying to hit Kuhneman over cover, never got hold of it. Kusal Mendes was out stumped off line. Bit of controversy around that dismissal, whether Carey had the ball in control when he took the bails off, but the umpire looked at it and gave it out. We saw a bit of the tail did wag a bit from Jeffrey Van der Sar, but he made a half century, and he eventually the last player to go, caught by Mitchell Starc off Kuhneman. He was trying to take the attack up to the Aussie bowlers, and Sri Lanka were all out for 247 in their second innings. Just terrific stuff. The figures for Australia in the second innings: Mitchell Starc 1 for 14, Todd Murphy 1 for 57, Matt Kuhneman 4 for 86, so 9 wickets in the match for him, and Nathan Lyon 4 for 78, 7 wickets in the match for him. So terrific stuff. And Australia, they've earned themselves a day off. I think the second Test starts on Thursday, so a bit of time now before they play in the second Test match. But, I sort of look at some of the things that stood out from this performance by Australia. And Usman Khawaja was adjudged the player of the match, and, fantastic 232 for him. There was some commentary, Spotify comments about the fact that I've been death riding Khawaja for the last month. He's come out and scored a big double hundred. Made it pretty clear. The reason I've been death riding is because I don't think he's the future of the team. And actually, Jeff Lawson, the very astute commentator and analyst of the game, he wrote an article in the Sydney Morning Herald papers today, basically expressing his disappointment that Consis wasn't given an opportunity in this test match to play and get used to these conditions. We can keep going around in circles in this one. One thing you can't argue with is the selectors got the results. We had the Khawaja double hundred. Steve Smith's brilliant 141 and Josh Inglis's memorable 100 on debut. Should Consis have been playing? Probably should have been, but it's too late now. So Khawaja, the player of the match, he was asked by the host of the post-match press celebration, how Khawaja's gone from, the lows of the Border Gavaskar series to the highs of a double hundred. And Khawaja said, look, it's not all about individual performances. We won the Border Gavaskar series 3-1, and that's all that really matters. So Khawaja, very humble, said he's made all his mistakes in Sri Lanka in the past and he's learnt from them, and boy did he cash in on this in this match. But you have to say Sri Lanka have been woeful. Like, there's no two ways of looking at this. Sri Lanka have been meek. They've been abject in all aspects of the game. They were pathetic in the field. De Silva's captaincy and leadership was lacking. The catching was poor. A lot of soft dismissals. It seemed like they were batting on a different pitch. Or, it was always a pretty good batting pitch if you could get in. But a lot of the wickets for Sri Lanka, they just got themselves out. And as I've said over the last couple of days, Australia took most of their chances. I think they dropped maybe one catch for the whole test match, and it made a huge difference. One thing that stood out was Steve Smith's tactical nous in these conditions. His superb captaincy, the way he rotated the three spinners and Mitchell Starc, the way he manipulated the field. Overnight, Matt Kuhnemann paid tribute to Smith in basically helping him get De Silva's wicket in the first innings. That was yesterday when De Silva ran down the pitch to hit one over the top. Prior to that, Smith had said to Koeman he was going to adjust the field, and he brought mid-on and mid-off right up. And he said he brought mid-on really tight, brought both the fielders up to tempt De Silva to go over the top straight. And Smith was telling Koeman, look, just keep bowling your best ball. The left arm ball that drifts in and spins away, and De Silva will take the bait. And he did, and he was stumped. So, we've seen it across many test matches in Asia that Steve Smith is very good in these conditions. And, I said before in another episode, maybe with Cummins' young family and, ankle problems, maybe at the end of the World Test Championship, it's a natural conclusion of his captaincy. He'll have done it for about 4 years, and he could maybe take a little break, and Smith could do the job for the next couple of years up until retirement. It seems to bring the best out of Smith. He's not the same character that he was when he had the job last time. He's a wiser, more mature person. And yeah, I just think it's something to consider. And I actually think Cummins might see the writing on the wall, but Smith has shown himself to be very good. And I haven't seen the interview, but Ashwin overnight, there was quotes coming out that he thinks Smith is the most astute captain at reading the play. So I'm going to look into that a bit more before the next podcast. I guess the other thing now is, Matt Kuhnemann, 9 wickets in the match. And I love Nathan Lyon, but are we at a point now where Kuhnemann's around the same level as Lyon, and maybe he offers something different? Like, if Australia is only going to play one spinner in a test match, are we at a point where they might consider swapping in Kuhnemann for Lyon on the odd occasion to challenge the batters with, different type of bowler, the left arm orthodox that spins away from the right-handers? I mean, we know how good Lyon is, and he took 7 wickets in this match, but Kuhnemann's entry to Test cricket now is proving to be pretty irresistible. I mean, he's averaging, I'll bring him up now actually, after this game, what his average was. I mean, it was 25 after the first innings. Let's have a look here. Yeah, his average now is 23.83. He's played 4 test matches, taken 18 wickets, and his average is 23.83. So that's a really good record, and he started so well. I love Nathan Lyon, big fan, but maybe we're seeing a situation where there could be a bit of rotation between Kuhnemann and Lyon over the coming next couple of years leading up to Nathan Lyon's retirement. Interesting, I was looking at Mitchell Starc's figures. So he will play his 96th Test match next week. So 97th Test match will be the World Test Championship final. And then there's 3 Test matches in the West Indies. So if Stark plays all 3 Test matches, he goes, he plays his 100th Test match in the West Indies. So keep an eye on that. I don't think Australia will make many changes for the second Test match. I'm not sure why you would after the performances here. I can't imagine them even bringing in Boland for Stark or doing anything like that. I think Australia will keep the same 11 if everybody's fit, and they'll be seeking to win their first series in Sri Lanka since 2011. I want cast your mind back to 2022. It was very similar to this. Australia smashed Sri Lanka in Galle, not quite to this extent, but they dominated them. And then in the second Test match, it was Sri Lanka who dominated Australia. Chandimal made a double 100. I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of there was almost a revolution going on in the streets at the time, and Sri Lanka leveled the series 1-1 there. So still so much work to be done for Australia in Sri Lanka. But, this Test match will go down as one of Australia's best performances in Asia. I mean, their biggest ever win, convincing with the bat. To see Kuhnemann, the way he bowled in both innings with the support of Lyon, it was very special stuff. And such a memorable day for Australia. Test match victories on 2 continents. A couple of other little oddities from today that Alyssa Healy and Mitchell Starc were playing at the same time over the last 3 days, and that's the first time in history that a husband and wife have played in a test at the same time. So really, crazily, they played the same number of games for Australia. I think 287 each. So they will both be celebrating, not together because they're on opposite sides of the planet, but just a terrific day for Australian cricket. And it's you put the highlights down, and that Alana King delivery of Dunkley. I don't think there's been a better ball in Test cricket. Well, I was going to say this year, but it's only January. But I don't think there's been a better ball in Test cricket all summer, men's or women's Test cricket. So, a golden day for Australian cricket. They smash England. They win the first Test in Sri Lanka. It's dizzying stuff. All right, so look, I'm going to be back after in the next couple of days to preview the next Test match and look back on this. But that's it for the Australian women's team. The Ashes is over. England will be going home. Australia are 1-0 up in the Warren Murali-Duran Trophy. Can they finish the job? The Test match starts on Thursday. We'll be back before then with a preview. I've actually got special guests lined up. Estelle, she is part of the Muralian podcast. She also does a lot of stuff with Jared Kimber, and she's in Sri Lanka covering this series. So I'm thrilled she could join me on the podcast. We'll be catching up in the next couple of days. But yes, thanks everybody for tuning in. Go and celebrate however you want to. Just keep watching the highlights. I would go back and find the videos of the Pommies just dropping 8 catches in the day at the MCG. That's really fun. I mean, you never get sick of that. Go back and watch highlights of England smashing the Sri Lankans. An incredible Test debut. He's the future. But that's it for Cricket Unfiltered. Thanks everybody for tuning into our wrap of, really 2 Test matches. We had the Test win at the MCG and the Test match at Galle. And I'll be back soon with another episode.